The stars were cold and silent. They had always been silent. In the endless dark of space, there was no sound, no warmth, and no mercy. Ships moved through this emptiness like ghosts, carrying the hopes and fears of their crews across distances that the human mind could barely understand. The UNSF Unyielding Dawn was one such ship. She was a dreadnought, massive and powerful, her hull scarred from a dozen battles. She carried 2,000 souls within her metal walls, and she was the flagship of the 7th Expeditionary Fleet. For 3 months, the fleet had been patrolling the outer rim of explored space, watching, waiting, and finding nothing but empty systems and dead rocks. Admiral Tejo Park stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. He was a tall man in his 50s, with gray at his temples and deep lines around his eyes. Those eyes had seen too much. They had seen friends die, they had seen worlds burn, but they had never grown cold. Behind the calm mask of command, there was still a fire burning. "Another quiet night," said Commander Jisoo Han, his second in command. She was younger than him, sharper in some ways, but she respected him deeply. Everyone did. "Quiet is good," Tejo replied. "Quiet means no one is dying." At the communications station, Lieutenant Minho Lee was bored. He had been staring at his screens for hours, listening to the background noise of the universe. Static, cosmic radiation, the occasional ping from a distant probe. Nothing interesting ever happened on the night shift. Then his screen flickered. Minho sat up straight. A signal. Faint, barely there, but definitely a signal. It was repeating, which meant it was not natural. Someone had sent it. Someone wanted to be heard. "Admiral," Minho called out, his voice tight with sudden tension. "I have something." Tejo walked over to the communications station. He looked at the screen, at the wave patterns dancing across it. "What is it?" "A transmission, sir. Very weak. It is coming from beyond our mapped territory." Minho's fingers flew across his console. "It is repeating, same message, over and over." "Can you clean it up? Can you translate it?" "I am trying, sir. The language is unknown. Running it through our database now." The bridge fell silent. Everyone was watching. Everyone was waiting. The computer worked for long minutes, comparing the alien sounds to every known language in human records. Finally, it found a partial match: the Valorians, a species humanity had heard of but never met. Peaceful, artistic. They had no military, they had no weapons. The translation appeared on the main screen, and the bridge crew read it together. "To anyone who hears this, we are dying. The Dominion came without warning. They are killing everyone. Our cities are gone. Our people are being hunted. We have no weapons. We have no ships. We have nothing left but this signal. Please, if anyone can hear us, please help. But we know the truth. There is no salvation. We die alone. We die forgotten. Forgive us for hoping. Forgive us for calling out into the dark." The message ended. Then it started again. The same words, the same desperate plea, over and over. Silence hung heavy on the bridge. Minho felt his throat tighten. Commander Jisoo had turned pale. Even the most hardened officers looked shaken. Admiral Tejo stood very still. His face showed nothing, but his hands had formed into fists at his sides. The Dominion? He knew that name. Everyone did. A brutal empire that conquered and enslaved. They saw other species as resources to be used and discarded, and now they were slaughtering a defenseless people. "How old is this signal?" Tejo asked quietly. Minho checked. "Based on the distance and signal decay. Maybe 2 weeks, sir, maybe less. So they might still be alive." "Some of them, sir, maybe." Tejo turned to face his crew. He looked at each of them in turn. Young faces and old faces. Men and women who had chosen to serve, to protect, to fight for something greater than themselves. He saw fear in some eyes. He saw doubt in others. But he also saw something else. He saw anger. He saw the same fire that burned in his own heart. The Valorians are strangers to us, Teho said, his voice calm but firm. We have never met them. We owe them nothing. Standard protocol says we should report this signal to command and wait for orders. Standard protocol says this is not our problem. He paused. The bridge was absolutely silent. But I did not become a soldier to follow standard protocol when innocent people are being murdered. I became a soldier to protect those who cannot protect themselves, to stand between the helpless and those who would harm them. He looked at the screen, at the message still repeating. They think no one is coming. They think they die alone. They are wrong. Commander Jisoo stepped forward. Sir, the Dominion is powerful. We do not know how many ships they have at Valora Prime. We could be flying into a trap. We could, Teho agreed, and I will not order anyone to come with me. This is a choice. If any ship in this fleet wishes to return to safe space, I will not stop them. I will not judge them. But the unyielding dawn is going to Valora Prime. I am going to answer that signal. No one moved. No one spoke. Then, one by one, the captains of the other ships in the fleet sent their responses. The brave heart was with him. The iron promise was with him. The silent thunder. The eternal vigil. The morning star. Every single ship. Every single captain. Commander Jisoo smiled, just a little. It seems you are not going alone, Admiral. Teho nodded. He felt pride swell in his chest, but he pushed it down. There would be time for pride later. Now, there was work to do. Set a course for Valora Prime, he ordered. Maximum speed. All hands to battle stations. We do not know what we will find when we arrive, but we will be ready for anything. The fleet turned as one. Engines roared to life. Stars stretched into lines as the ships jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, the cold silence of the void remained. But ahead of them, something was waiting. A dying world, a desperate people, an enemy that had never faced true opposition. On the bridge of the unyielding dawn, Lieutenant Minho continued to listen to the Valorian signal. It was still repeating, still calling out, still hoping against hope. Hold on, he whispered, though he knew they could not hear him. We are coming. Just hold on a little longer. The fleet flew through the dark, carrying fury and compassion in equal measure. They were human, they were soldiers, and they did not leave anyone to die alone. Not while they still had ships to fly and guns to fire. Not while there was still a chance. Valora Prime had once been beautiful. The Valorians still remembered how it used to look. Blue skies that stretched forever. Cities made of crystal and light. Gardens that bloomed in every color the eye could see. Music in the streets, laughter in the homes, peace in every heart. That was before the Dominion came. Now, the sky was black with smoke. The crystal cities lay in ruins, shattered like broken dreams. The gardens had burned, the music had died, and the laughter had turned to screams and then to silence. Elder Kiva walked through the remains of the great temple. She was old, even by Valorian standards. Her skin was pale blue, marked with the silver patterns that came with age. Her eyes, large and dark, had seen more than 100 cycles of their sun. She had seen her people grow and flourish. She had seen art created that made the soul weep with joy. She had seen children born and elders pass on peacefully. And now she had seen her people die. The survivors huddled in the temple's deepest chambers. Once, thousands would gather here to celebrate life. Now, barely 3,000 remained. 3,000 out of billions. They were the last. The very last. A young Valorian named Soren sat near the entrance, watching the sky through a crack in the ruined wall. He was barely an adult, his silver patterns still forming on his pale skin. His parents were gone, his sisters were gone. Everyone he had ever loved was gone, but he was still here. He did not know why. You should rest, Elder Kiva said gently, sitting beside him. Soren did not look away from the sky. I keep watching, he said. I keep hoping. Hoping for what? That someone heard us. That someone is coming. Kiva's heart ached. She had sent the signal herself weeks ago. She had found an old communications device in the ruins and had broadcast their plea in every direction. But she knew the truth. The galaxy was vast. The chances of anyone hearing them were almost nothing. And even if someone heard, why would they come? The Valorians had nothing to offer. They could not pay for rescue. They could not fight alongside warriors. They were just artists and dreamers, dying on a forgotten world. Perhaps someone did hear, Kiva said, because she could not bear to crush his hope completely. Perhaps help is on the way. Soren finally looked at her. His young eyes were too old, too tired. You do not believe that, Elder? Before Kiva could answer, a sound cut through the air. A low, rumbling horn. The sound of Dominion ships. The survivors began to panic. Mothers grabbed children. The wounded tried to stand. Everyone knew what that sound meant. The hunters were coming again. But this time was different. Instead of attack ships, a single vessel descended from the clouds. It was a command shuttle bearing the mark of the Dominion leadership. It landed in the plaza outside the temple, and a figure stepped out. General Vorath was tall, even for his species. His skin was dark red, his body covered in natural armor plates. He wore the black uniform of the Dominion military, decorated with medals and symbols of conquest. He walked with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. Behind him came a holographic projector. It flickered to life, and a massive image appeared in the sky above the temple. A face. Overlord Thraxis himself, the supreme commander of the Dominion forces. Thraxis was old and cruel. His yellow eyes burned with cold fire. His voice, when he spoke, was like grinding stone. People of Valora, Thraxis announced, your resistance has been impressive. You have hidden well. You have survived longer than we expected. But this game is over. I am a generous master. I offer you one final chance. Kiva stepped forward, standing at the entrance of the temple. She would not hide. She would face this monster with dignity. Surrender yourselves, Thraxis continued. Come out peacefully. Submit to processing, and I promise your deaths will be quick. Refuse, and the orbital bombardment will resume. We will turn this entire continent to glass. There will be nothing left, not even dust. General Vorath smiled. It was an ugly thing, that smile. You have 1 hour to decide, he added. Use your time wisely. The hologram faded. Vorath returned to his shuttle and flew away, leaving the survivors in stunned silence. Inside the temple, chaos erupted. Some wanted to fight, to die with honor. But fight with what? They had no weapons. Some wanted to run, but run where? The Dominion controlled the entire planet. There was nowhere to go. Soren found Elder Kiva standing alone, staring at the sky. What do we do? He asked. Elder, what do we do? Kiva was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice steady despite everything. We prepare for the end, she said. We gather together. We hold each other, and we remember who we were. We were artists, we were dreamers, we were kind, we loved deeply and lived fully. The Dominion can take our lives, but they cannot take that. They cannot take what we were. Soren felt tears running down his face. I do not want to die. Neither do I, child. Neither do I. They gathered in the central chamber, all 3,000 of them. They held hands. Some sang old songs, some prayed, some simply wept. They waited for the end. The hour passed slowly. Then it was over. The sky began to darken. Soren looked up through the broken roof and saw shapes appearing through the clouds. Ships, many ships. The bombardment was coming, but something was wrong. The ships were not falling into bombardment positions. They were fighting. Explosions lit up the sky. Beams of light crossed and clashed. Fire and debris rained down, but not toward the surface, toward other ships. What is happening? Someone asked. Kiva stared upward, her dark eyes wide. The ships that were attacking the Dominion fleet, she did not recognize them. They were not Dominion design. They were something else entirely. Something new. One of the new ships broke through the clouds, descending toward the surface. Then another and another, dozens of them, hundreds. They fell like meteors, trailing fire and fury. On the sides of the ships, Soren could see markings, symbols he had never seen before, letters in an alien language. UNSF, United Nations Space Force. The word spread through the temple like wildfire. Ships, unknown ships, fighting the Dominion, coming down to the surface. Who are they? Soren breathed. Where did they come from? Kiva did not answer. She could not answer. She was watching the sky split open with battle. She was watching the Dominion ships burn and fall. She was watching salvation arrive on wings of fire. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding. The signal, the desperate, hopeless signal she had sent into the void. Someone had heard it. Someone had come. Against all odds, against all reason, against everything she believed possible, someone had answered. Kiva fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Around her, the Valorian survivors were crying, screaming, holding each other. They did not know who these strangers were. They did not know what would happen next. But for the first time in months, they felt something they had thought lost forever. Hope. The Dominion fleet had been confident. They had good reason to be. For 300 years, they had conquered system after system. No one had ever truly challenged them. Smaller species surrendered or died. Larger ones negotiated or fled. The Dominion was a storm that could not be stopped. Overlord Thraxus sat on his throne aboard the flagship Eternal Conquest. He was watching the final moments of Valora Prime, enjoying the destruction as one might enjoy a fine meal. Soon, the bombardment would begin. Soon, the last Valorians would be dust. It was almost disappointing how easy it had been. Then, the alarms started. Overlord! An officer ran onto the bridge, his face pale with panic. Ships! Unidentified ships dropping out of faster than light. Dozens of them. No, hundreds. Thraxus rose from his throne. What? On the main screen, reality twisted and tore. Space itself seemed to scream as hundreds of vessels ripped through the barrier between faster-than-light travel and normal space. They came in hard and fast, their weapons already charging. The first volley hit before the Dominion could react. 3 Dominion cruisers exploded in the opening seconds. A fourth lost its engines and began to drift. The Dominion fleet scrambled to respond, but they were caught completely off guard. Their ships were in bombardment formation, not combat formation. They were positioned to attack a defenseless planet, not to fight a war. Admiral Tejo Park stood on the bridge of the unyielding Dawn, watching the battle unfold. His face was calm, almost peaceful, but his eyes were burning. All ships, execute Pattern Delta, he commanded. Carriers, launch fighters. Destroyers, focus fire on their capital ships. Do not let a single Dominion vessel escape. Captain Yuna Kang's voice crackled over the command frequency. She was aboard the assault carrier Morning Star, preparing her troops for ground deployment. Admiral, request permission to begin surface operations. Negative, Captain. Not yet. We need to clear the orbital space first. The last thing we need is Dominion ships bombarding our landing zones. Understood, Admiral. But make it quick. Those people down there have waited long enough. Tejo allowed himself a small smile. Yuna was always eager for battle. It was what made her such an effective ground commander. But patience was also a virtue, and this battle required both aggression and precision. The Dominion fleet was finally organizing a response. Their admiral, a creature called Zorthax, was screaming orders at his crews. Dominion ships turned to face the attackers. Weapons charging, they still had numbers. They still had firepower. They could still win this. At least, that was what Zorthax believed. He was wrong. The human ships were smaller than Dominion vessels. They were less armored. On paper, they should have been weaker. But the humans fought differently. They were faster, more agile. They moved together like a single organism, each ship supporting the others. When a human frigate was damaged, two more would swoop in to cover its retreat. When a Dominion ship turned to face one threat, three human vessels would strike from different angles. It was chaos. Beautiful, terrible chaos. On the Eternal Conquest, Overlord Thraxus watched his fleet being torn apart. His hands gripped the arms of his throne so hard that his claws dug into the metal. "Who are they?" he demanded. "Who are these creatures?" An officer checked the captured data, hands trembling. The markings on their ships, they call themselves Humans Overlord. They are from a system called Sol. We have almost no information on them. Humans? Thraxus repeated the word like a curse. I have never heard of them. According to our records, they are a minor species. A single homeworld. No significant military presence. They should not be able to, and yet here they are, Thraxus roared. Here they are, destroying my fleet. Find me a way to win this battle, or I will have your head. But there was no way to win. The battle was already lost. The humans had planned their attack perfectly. They had used the element of surprise. They had struck hard and fast, and they showed no mercy. Lieutenant Minho Lee, aboard the unyielding Dawn, was monitoring Dominion communications. He could hear their panic, their confusion, their fear. The mighty Dominion, the terror of 100 worlds, was afraid. "Admiral," Minho reported, "they are trying to call for reinforcements, long-range communications." "Jam them," Tejo ordered. "Nothing gets out. No calls for help. No warnings. As far as the rest of the Dominion knows, this fleet simply vanished." The jamming systems activated. Silence fell over the Dominion frequencies. They were cut off, alone. Captain Yuna watched from the Morning Star as another Dominion battleship broke apart under concentrated human fire. She could see the escape pods launching from the dying vessel. The humans did not target escape pods. That was not their way. They killed in battle, but they did not murder the helpless. Even enemies deserved the chance to surrender. "Admiral, orbital space is almost clear," Yuna reported. "Permission to begin landing operations." Tejo looked at the tactical display. Most Dominion ships were destroyed or disabled. A few were trying to flee, but human destroyers were running them down. The flagship, the Eternal Conquest, was surrounded. "Permission granted," Tejo said. "Get down there, Captain. Save those people." Yuna smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator about to hunt. "With pleasure, Admiral." The dropships launched from the Morning Star and a dozen other carriers. They fell toward Valora Prime like a storm of metal and fire. Inside each one, human soldiers prepared for battle. They checked their weapons. They tightened their armor. They said quiet prayers or whispered promises to loved ones far away. Sergeant Hana Choi stood at the front of her squad's dropship. She was not tall, but she was built like a tank. All muscle and determination. Her heavy weapons pack weighed almost as much as she did, but she carried it like it was nothing. "Listen up," she called to her squad. "Down there, you will see things that will make you angry. You will see what the Dominion did to these people. You will want revenge. That is good. Use that anger. But do not let it make you stupid. We are here to save lives, not throw ours away. Understood?" "Yes, Sergeant," the squad shouted back. The dropship shook as it entered the atmosphere. Fire washed across the viewports. Then they were through, falling toward a ruined city. Below, Hana could see the devastation. Collapsed buildings, burning streets, bodies lying in the open. Her hands tightened on her weapon. The anger was already building. Good, she would need it. The dropship landed hard, ramp slamming down. Hana was the first one out, boots hitting the ground running. Around her, hundreds of other dropships were landing. Human soldiers poured out like a flood. They spread through the ruins, weapons ready, eyes scanning for threats. And in the distance, at the Dominion Command Center, General Vorath was watching. He had seen the battle in orbit. He had seen his fleet die, and now he was seeing humans on the surface of his conquered world. For the first time in his long military career, General Vorath felt something he had never felt before. Fear. The humans were here. The humans were angry. And the humans were coming for him. The first Dominion soldier Sergeant Hannah Choi encountered was hiding behind a collapsed wall. He jumped out, weapon raised, thinking he had the advantage. He was wrong. Hannah was faster. Her rifle barked twice, and the soldier fell. "Contact!" she shouted. "Hostiles in the ruins ahead!" The battle for Valora Prime's surface had begun. Dominion ground forces had been scattered across the planet, hunting the last survivors. They were not prepared for an invasion. They were equipped for slaughter, not for war. Their weapons were designed to kill defenseless civilians, not trained soldiers. The difference showed immediately. Hannah's squad moved through the ruins with deadly precision. They had trained for urban combat. They knew how to clear buildings, how to cover each other, how to turn every corner into a trap for their enemies. The Dominion soldiers they encountered were experienced killers. But killing farmers and children was not the same as fighting warriors. Private Junho Baek, the youngest member of Hannah's squad, took cover behind a shattered fountain. Laser fire scorched the stone above his head. He waited, counted, then popped up and fired 3 rounds. A Dominion soldier dropped. "Got one!" Junho called out. "Good," Hannah replied. "Now get 3 more. Move." The squad pushed forward. Behind them, other human units were doing the same. The entire ruined city was becoming a battlefield. Gunfire echoed from every direction. Explosions lit up the smoke-filled sky. The Dominion was fighting back, but they were losing. Step by step, block by block, the humans were pushing them back. Captain Yuna Kang led the main assault force toward the Dominion Command Center. It was a massive structure at the heart of the city, built on top of what had once been a Valorian concert hall. The Dominion had turned a place of beauty into a fortress of death. "All units converge on the command center," Yuna ordered. "We take that building, we break their leadership. Without orders, the rest of them will fall apart." She ran through the streets, her personal guard keeping pace. A Dominion vehicle appeared around a corner, its guns swiveling toward her. Yuna dove aside as it fired the blast, tearing up the ground where she had been standing. One of her soldiers fired a rocket. The vehicle exploded. "Keep moving!" Yuna shouted. "Do not stop!" At the command center, General Vorath was receiving reports. All of them were bad. His forces were being pushed back everywhere. His communications were jammed. His fleet was destroyed. And now these strange creatures were at his door. "How many are there?" he demanded. "Unknown, General. Hundreds, at least. Maybe thousands. And they are just soldiers? Warriors? Like us?" The officer hesitated. "They appear to be, General, but they fight like nothing we have seen. They do not hesitate. They do not show fear. And they are angry, General. Very angry." Vorath did not understand. Why would these humans be angry? What had the Dominion ever done to them? Nothing. The humans had no connection to the Valorians. They had no stake in this war. Yet they fought like the Dominion had killed their own families. It made no sense. And that terrified him more than anything. Outside the command center, Hannah's squad had linked up with Captain Yuna's forces. Together, they prepared for the final assault. "What is the situation inside?" Yuna asked. Hannah checked her scanner. "Heavy defenses. At least 50 soldiers, maybe more. They have set up barricades at every entrance. Then we make a new entrance." Yuna turned to her demolitions expert. "Do-hyun, can you blow a hole in that wall?" Corporal Do-hyun Kim grinned. He was a small man who loved explosions far more than was probably healthy. "Captain, I can blow a hole in anything." "Then do it. Everyone else, prepare to breach. Flashbangs first, then we go in hard. Remember, there might be Valorian prisoners inside. Watch your fire." The charges were set. Everyone took cover. Do-hyun pressed the detonator. The wall exploded inward, showering the inside of the command center with debris. Before the dust could settle, flashbangs flew through the gap. blinding light, deafening sound, and then the humans came. Yuna was first through the breach. Her rifle was an extension of her body, moving smoothly from target to target. 1 shot, 2 shots, 3. Each one found its mark. Behind her, her soldiers poured in, spreading out, overwhelming the dazed defenders. The Dominion soldiers tried to fight back. Some managed to fire their weapons. A human soldier fell, clutching his shoulder. Another was hit in the leg. But the momentum was unstoppable. The humans were faster, more aggressive, more determined. Within minutes, the outer defenses were cleared. "Push to the command room," Yuna ordered. "Vorath is here somewhere. I want him alive." They fought through the building, room by room, floor by floor. The Dominion soldiers died or surrendered. Most chose to die. They knew what would happen if the Dominion found out they had surrendered to a lesser species. Hana kicked open a door and found herself in a large hall. Once, this had been where the Valorians performed their music. Now, it was a command center, filled with screens and holographic displays. And at the center, standing tall despite everything, was General Vorath. He was alone. His guards were dead. His soldiers were either captured or killed, but he still held his head high. He was Dominion. He would not show weakness. "So," Vorath said, his voice calm, "you are the humans." Yuna stepped forward, lowering her weapon slightly but keeping it ready. "And you are the one who murdered these people. I conquered them. There is a difference. They had no weapons, no army. You slaughtered civilians, children. That is not conquest. That is murder." Vorath shrugged, a strange gesture on his armored body. "They were weak. The weak exist to serve the strong. This is the natural order." Yuna felt the anger rising in her chest. She wanted to shoot him. She wanted to make him pay for every Valorian who had died screaming. But she was a soldier, not a murderer. She was better than him. "You are under arrest," she said through gritted teeth. "You will face trial for war crimes, for genocide, for crimes against sentient beings." Vorath laughed. It was an ugly sound. "And what authority do you have to judge me? You are not Dominion. You are not anyone. You are just animals playing at being warriors." Hana stepped forward, her heavy rifle pointed at Vorath's chest. "Say that again. I dare you." "Sergeant," Yuna warned, "stand down." Hana did not lower her weapon. Her finger tightened on the trigger. Then, slowly, she relaxed. She stepped back. "You are lucky," she told Vorath. "You are lucky we are better than you." Outside, the battle was ending. Dominion soldiers were surrendering in increasing numbers. With their general captured and their fleet destroyed, there was no point in fighting. The humans took prisoners. They provided medical care to the wounded, even Dominion wounded. They did not torture. They did not execute. The Valorians watched from the ruins of their temple. They saw their oppressors being led away in chains. They saw the humans, these strange, furious creatures, showing mercy to their enemies. Young Soren watched a human soldier help a wounded Valorian child. The soldier did not speak their language. She could not understand the child's words. But she smiled. She made silly faces. She pulled snacks from her pack and offered them. The child laughed. It was the first laugh Soren had heard in months. He did not understand these humans. They fought like demons. They showed no mercy in battle. But when the fighting stopped, they became gentle, kind, caring. Who were these creatures? What were they? Soren did not know. But he knew one thing. They had saved his people. And for that, he would be grateful for the rest of his life. In orbit above Valora Prime, the battle was almost over. The Dominion fleet that had once seemed so invincible was now scattered wreckage floating in the void. Burning hulks tumbled through space. Escape pods drifted among the debris. The stars themselves seemed to dim in the presence of so much destruction. But one ship still survived. The Eternal Conquest, flagship of Overlord Thraxus, was surrounded by human vessels. Its weapons were still active, its shields still holding, but it had nowhere to go. Every escape route was blocked. Every avenue of retreat was closed. Admiral Tejo Park stood on the bridge of the unyielding dawn, studying the trapped flagship. His fleet had suffered losses in the battle, 17 ships destroyed, hundreds of good people dead, but the enemy had lost everything. More than 200 Dominion vessels were nothing but scattered atoms. Admiral, Lieutenant Minho Lee reported, "We are receiving a transmission from the Dominion flagship. Overlord Thraxus wants to negotiate." Tejo raised an eyebrow. "Does he now?" Put him on screen. The main display flickered, and the face of Overlord Thraxus appeared. He looked different from before. His earlier confidence was gone. His yellow eyes were wild, desperate, but there was still arrogance there. Still the belief that he was somehow superior. "Human Commander," Thraxus began, "you have fought well, better than I expected, but this battle is pointless. We can still reach an agreement. I am prepared to offer you generous terms for withdrawal." Tejo said nothing. He simply waited. Thraxus continued, his voice becoming more urgent. "Think about it. The Dominion is vast. This is just one fleet. If you destroy me, more will come. Hundreds of fleets, thousands of ships. You cannot win a war against the entire Dominion." "I do not recall declaring war on the Dominion," Tejo replied calmly. "I recall responding to a distress call. I recall finding a defenseless species being slaughtered. I recall deciding that such things cannot be allowed to stand." For what? For these Valorians? They are nothing. They are animals. They have no value to anyone. They have value to us. Thraxus's face twisted with rage and confusion. Why? What do they offer you? What can they give you that would be worth fighting for? Tejo leaned forward slightly. His voice remained calm, but there was iron beneath the words. "They did not need to offer us anything. They did not need to give us anything. They needed help. We could provide it. That is enough." That is madness. No one sacrifices their own people for strangers. No one risks their ships, their lives, for beings they have never met. Humans do. The words hung in the air. Thraxus stared at the screen, and for a moment, he seemed to truly see the human commander for the first time. He saw a being who did not think like Dominion, who did not calculate value and cost the same way, who would walk into fire for people he had never known. And in that moment, Thraxus felt something he had never felt before. Not just fear, horror. The horror of realizing that he faced an enemy he could not understand. "This negotiation is over," Tejo said. "Surrender your ship and your crew, or we will destroy you." "You would not dare!" Thraxus screamed. "I have the self-destruct system armed. If you attempt to board, I will detonate the reactor. I will take your flagship with me." Tejo nodded slowly. "You might. The eternal conquest is close enough that the explosion could damage the unyielding dawn, perhaps even destroy it. Then you must let me go, or we both die." "No." The single word stopped Thraxus cold. "No? No." Tejo stood straight, his hands clasped behind his back. "You want to threaten me with death? I have watched good soldiers die for months. I have sent people into battles knowing some would not return. Death does not frighten me, and it certainly does not make me abandon my duty." He took a step closer to the screen. "If you destroy your ship, you destroy yourself. Your fleet is already gone. Your ground forces are captured. Everything you came here to do has failed. And if you die here, what happens next? Your empire learns that a single human fleet destroyed everything you had. They learn that Overlord Thraxus, the great conqueror, was cornered like an animal and chose to blow himself up rather than face justice. Is that the legacy you want?" Thraxus was shaking now. His clawed hands trembled at his sides. The arrogance was crumbling, revealing the coward beneath. "Consider your position," Tejo continued. "Surrender and you live. Face trial and perhaps find some way to continue existing. But trigger that self-destruct and you die here, in this forgotten system remembered as the fool who lost everything to creatures he called inferior. Silence stretched between them. The bridge crews on both ships held their breath. Then Thraxus's shoulders slumped. The fight went out of him like air from a balloon. His voice, when he spoke, was barely a whisper. "What are your terms?" "Unconditional surrender. Your crew will be treated as prisoners of war. They will not be harmed. You will face trial for crimes against the Valorian people. And if I refuse?" Tejo's voice remained steady. "Then we board your ship, we capture you anyway, and more people die. Some of yours, some of ours, but the outcome does not change. Choose wisely, Overlord. This is the only offer you will receive." Another long silence. Then Thraxus nodded. It was barely visible, just a small movement of his head, but it was enough. "I accept your terms. Stand down all weapons. Prepare to be boarded." A cheer went up on the bridge of the unyielding dawn. The battle was over. They had won. Tejo allowed himself a small smile, but only for a moment. There was still work to do. Marines were dispatched to board the Eternal Conquest. They secured the bridge, the engine room, the weapon systems. They found the self-destruct switch. Thraxus had not been bluffing. Another few minutes of resistance, and he might have actually triggered it. When the Marines brought Thraxus to the unyielding dawn, the entire crew turned out to see him. This was the monster who had ordered the genocide of the Valorians. This was the creature who had burned cities and slaughtered innocents. And now he walked in chains, head bowed, defeated. Tejo met him in the hangar bay. The two leaders stood face to face. "You do not understand," Thraxus said quietly. "The Dominion will not let this stand. They will send more fleets. They will hunt your people to extinction." Tejo nodded. "Perhaps they will try, but they will find us ready, and every species they have oppressed will see what happened here today. They will see that the Dominion can be beaten. They will see that someone finally stood up and said no." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You did not just lose a fleet today, Overlord. You lost the illusion of invincibility, and that is something you can never get back." Thraxus had no response. What could he say? The human was right. Everything was different now. The galaxy would learn of this battle. The galaxy would know that the Dominion could fall. As Thraxus was led away to a holding cell, Tejo turned to look out the hangar bay viewport. Valora Prime hung below, blue and green, scarred but still alive. And on its surface, thousands of Valorians were finally safe. The price had been high. Good people had died. Ships had been lost. But the mission was accomplished. Now came the harder part. Rebuilding. Healing. Making sure that what had happened to the Valorians would never happen again. Tejo took a deep breath and headed back to the bridge. There was still much to do. The silence was strange. For months, the people of Valora Prime had lived with the sounds of war. Explosions, screams, the grinding roar of Dominion vehicles hunting through the ruins. The silence that came after was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It was the silence of peace, but also the silence of a graveyard. Elder Kiva walked through what remained of her city. She had lived here for more than a century. She remembered every street, every building, every garden. Now it was all gone. Rubble and ash stretched in every direction. The bones of her civilization lay exposed under the empty sky. But she was not alone. Human soldiers moved through the ruins, but they were not hunting. They were helping. Medical teams set up stations in every cleared area. Engineers worked to restore power and water. Supply ships landed constantly, unloading food, medicine, and shelter materials. The humans worked tirelessly, never stopping, never complaining. Captain Yuna Kang found Kiva standing before the shattered remains of the Great Temple. The old Valorian was motionless, her dark eyes wet with tears she would not let fall. "Elder Kiva," Yuna approached carefully, respectfully. "I am Captain Yuna Kang. I lead the ground forces here." Kiva turned to look at her. The human was young, by Valorian standards, strong, There was still dirt and blood on her uniform from the battle, but her eyes were kind. "You are the one who captured General Vorath," Kiva said. "Yes." "Thank you." The words felt inadequate. How could two simple words express the gratitude of an entire species? But they were all Kiva had. Yuna nodded. "I only wish we had arrived sooner. I am sorry we could not save more of your people." Kiva felt the weight of that sorrow. Billions dead. Thousands of years of culture destroyed. But then she looked around. She saw her surviving people being cared for. She saw children being fed. She saw the wounded being healed. "You came when no one else would," Kiva said. "You risked everything for strangers. Do not apologize for not being gods. You were enough." They stood together for a moment, two leaders from two different species, sharing a quiet understanding. Then Kiva asked the question that had been burning in her mind since the first human ships appeared in the sky. "Why? We have nothing to offer you. We cannot pay for your help. We cannot fight beside you in future wars. Why would you sacrifice so much for us?" Yuna thought about it. She thought about her training, her duty, her oaths, but that was not really the answer. The answer was simpler than that. "Because we heard you," she said, "because you were alone, and because no one deserves to die thinking no one cared." Kiva stared at her. In all her long years, she had never heard anything like that. The Dominion saw the universe as a place of competition, where the strong dominated the weak. The Valorians had seen it as a place of isolation, where each species survived alone. But the humans saw something else entirely. They saw a universe where suffering demanded response, where helping strangers was not foolish but necessary. It was beautiful. It was also terrifying in its implications. "You are a strange people," Kiva said finally. Yuna smiled. "We get that a lot." Across the city, similar scenes were playing out. Young Soren had been watching the humans for days, and he still could not understand them. He had seen them fight with terrifying ferocity. He had seen them kill Dominion soldiers without hesitation. But now, those same warriors were sitting with Valorian children, playing games, sharing food, making the little ones laugh. One soldier in particular had caught Soren's attention. She was a medic named Unji, small and gentle, with a smile that never seemed to fade. She did not speak Valorian, and the Valorians did not speak her language. But somehow, she made herself understood, with gestures, with expressions, with the simple language of kindness. Soren approached her one afternoon as she was treating a wounded elder. She looked up and smiled at him, saying something in her strange human tongue. He did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. "Welcome, friend." "Why?" Soren asked, knowing she could not understand. "Why did you come?" Unji tilted her head, puzzled. Then she seemed to grasp what he was asking. She pointed up at the sky, then at Soren, then at her own heart. She made a gesture of listening. Then she pointed at the ground, at the humans working all around, and smiled. "You called. We listened. We came." Soren felt tears running down his face. He did not know what to say, so he said the only thing he could. "Thank you." Yunji smiled and gently patted his shoulder. No translation was needed. Admiral Teho Park landed on Valora Prime 3 days after the battle ended. He was greeted by Captain Yuna and a group of Valorian leaders, including Elder Kiva. They met in a cleared plaza, surrounded by the ruins of what had once been a city center. "Admiral," Kiva said, bowing in the Valorian fashion, "your fleet has saved us. We are in your debt forever." Teho returned the bow, matching her respect. "There is no debt. We did what any decent people should do. We saw suffering and we acted. That is not heroism. That is just humanity." "Humanity," Kiva repeated the word. "Is that what you call yourselves?" "Yes." "Then humanity is a word I will teach my people to speak with reverence. Humanity is the name of our salvation." The reconstruction of Valora Prime began in earnest. Human engineers worked alongside Valorian survivors to clear rubble and build temporary shelters. Medical teams treated the sick and wounded. Counselors worked with the traumatized, helping them begin the long process of healing. But it was not just physical aid the humans provided. They brought something more important. They brought hope. They proved that the universe was not as cold and empty as the Valorians had believed. They proved that strangers could become friends. That help could come from unexpected places. That compassion was not weakness, but strength. Weeks passed. The emergency phase of the rescue gave way to longer-term planning. The humans could not stay forever. They had their own homes, their own duties, their own lives, but they would not simply leave the Valorians alone. "We will establish a garrison here," Tejo explained to the Valorian Council. "A permanent presence to protect your world while you rebuild. We will provide technology, resources, and training, and we will make sure the Dominion knows that Valora Prime is under our protection." "The Dominion will not accept this," one of the council members said. "They will want revenge." "Let them come," Tejo replied. "We beat them once. We can beat them again. And next time, we will not be alone. Other species will see what happened here. Other victims of the Dominion will find courage. The universe is changing, friends. The Dominion's time is ending." Elder Kiva listened to these words and felt something stir in her ancient heart. Hope. Not just for her people, but for the galaxy. These humans were not just rescuers. They were a force for change. They were proving that things could be different, that empires of cruelty could fall, that kindness could triumph. She looked at Tejo, at Yuna, at the humans working tirelessly to rebuild her world, and she made a silent promise. "We will remember this. We will tell this story to our children and our children's children." The day the sky broke open and salvation fell from the stars, the day humanity came. Forever and always, we will remember. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Valora Prime. The scars remained, both on the land and in the hearts of the survivors. But new buildings rose among the ruins. Gardens began to bloom again. Children played in streets that had once been graveyards. Life was returning, slowly but surely. The human garrison remained, as promised. 2 destroyers orbited the planet at all times. A small base had been built on the surface, home to 500 soldiers and support staff. They trained with the Valorians, taught them to defend themselves, helped them rebuild their shattered infrastructure. The protection of humanity was not just a promise, it was a reality. Elder Kiva stood at the entrance of the newly constructed memorial. It was a simple structure, a spiral of polished stone rising toward the sky. Each stone bore the name of a Valorian who had died during the occupation. There were millions of names. The spiral seemed to reach forever. Behind her, young Soren waited patiently. He was different now. The trauma of the occupation would never fully leave him, but he had found purpose. He was learning the human language. He was training to join the 1st Valorian Defense Force. He wanted to be ready if the darkness ever returned. "The Admiral is departing today," Soren said. "Will you come to see him off?" Kiva nodded. "Of course. He saved our people. The least I can do is say goodbye." They walked together to the landing field where the unyielding Dawn's shuttle was waiting. Admiral Tejo Park stood at the base of the ramp, surrounded by his officers. Captain Yuna Kang was there, along with Sergeant Hana Choi and Lieutenant Minho Lee. They had become familiar faces to the Valorians over the past months. Friends, not just protectors. Kiva approached Tejo and bowed deeply. "Admiral, there are no words sufficient to thank you. You and your people have given us everything." Tejo returned the bow. "You have given us something as well, Elder. You have given us proof that what we do matters, that all the sacrifice and struggle is worthwhile. Where will you go now?" "Back to our territory. There is much to do. The Dominion knows about us now. They will respond. Eventually. We must prepare," He paused, then smiled slightly. But we will return. Valora Prime is under our protection. You are not alone anymore. Never again. Kiva felt tears threatening to fall. She had cried more in the past months than in the previous century of her life. But these were good tears. Healing tears. The story of what you did here, she said, we will tell it to every Valorian who is ever born. We will make sure no one ever forgets. The humans came, the humans saved us. Humanity showed us what compassion means. Yuna stepped forward. Elder, we did not act alone. Your people showed incredible courage. You survived against impossible odds. You refused to give up hope. That matters too. Kiva smiled, the expression strange on her alien features, but warm nonetheless. Then we will remember that as well. That when hope seemed lost, we held on, and help came. Sergeant Hana approached Soren and held out something. It was a small medal, a human military decoration. For bravery, she said in careful, practiced Valorian. You helped us find survivors. You guided our soldiers through the ruins. You fought even though you had no training. You are a warrior. Soren, never forget that. Soren took the medal with trembling hands. He looked at Hana, at the tough, fierce woman who had torn through Dominion soldiers like a force of nature. And she was calling him brave. I will not forget, he promised. I will make you proud. You already have, kid. Hana patted his shoulder roughly. You already have. The goodbyes continued. Small moments of connection between two species that had been strangers mere months ago. Then, finally, it was time. The human leaders boarded the shuttle. The ramp closed. Engines roared to life. The shuttle rose into the sky, climbing toward the waiting fleet above. The Valorians watched until the shuttle was nothing but a distant star. Then they turned back to their work. There was still so much to do, but they did it with lighter hearts. Far above Valora Prime, the human fleet prepared to depart. Admiral Tejo stood on the bridge of the unyielding dawn, looking down at the planet that had changed everything. It looked almost peaceful from up here. Hard to believe so much blood had been spilled on its surface. Admiral, Minho said from his station, we are receiving something. Multiple transmissions from across the galaxy. They are all talking about us. Show me. The main screen filled with fragments of communication from a dozen different species. Some were news broadcasts. Some were private messages that had been intercepted. Some were government discussions. All of them were discussing the same thing. The humans. The Battle of Valora Prime. The fall of the Dominion fleet. One transmission showed a group of aliens celebrating in the streets. Their world had been conquered by the Dominion decades ago. Now, seeing the Dominion defeated, they were daring to hope for the first time since their childhood. Another transmission was a military communication between two species that had been too afraid to resist the Dominion. They were discussing alliance, discussion of building a fleet, of fighting back. A third showed a Dominion propaganda channel trying to suppress the news. But even they could not hide the truth. The galaxy knew what had happened. The galaxy knew that the Dominion could be beaten. Tejo watched it all with a mixture of pride and concern. Pride because they had made a difference. Concern because the Dominion would not let this stand. War was coming. Real war. Not just one fleet against another, but entire civilizations in conflict. But he did not regret his decision. He never would. The message is spreading, Yuna said quietly, standing beside him. Every species that has suffered under the Dominion is hearing about what we did. Good. Let them hear. Let them know that resistance is possible. Let them know that they are not alone. Yuna nodded. Then she asked the question that was on everyone's mind. What happens now, Admiral? Tejo thought about it. He thought about the soldiers who had died in the battle, about the ones who would die in the battles to come, about the galaxy that was waking up, finally, to the possibility of freedom. Now we go home, he said. We report what happened here. We prepare for what is coming, and we make sure that every species who asks for help knows where to find us. He turned to face his crew, men and women who had followed him into the unknown, who had fought and bled for people they had never met. They were tired, they were wounded, but they were proud of what they had done. You have all served with honor, Tejo told them. You have shown the galaxy what humanity stands for. Compassion, courage, the willingness to stand against tyranny no matter the cost. That is our legacy. That is what we will be remembered for. He paused, then smiled. Set a course for home. We have earned some rest. But remember this day. Remember Valora Prime. Remember the people we saved. And remember that this is only the beginning. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed. The stars stretched into lines and disappeared. Valora Prime faded from view, but it would never fade from memory. And across the galaxy, on 100 different worlds, beings who had lived in fear for generations looked up at the sky and wondered. The humans were out there. The humans had proven that monsters could be killed, that hope was not foolish, that salvation was possible. Somewhere, on a world called Renox, a group of oppressed aliens began to organize a resistance movement. Somewhere, on a space station at the edge of Dominion territory, a smuggler decided to start ferrying refugees to safety. Somewhere, in a dark prison cell, a captive who had given up hope heard a whisper about humans who came from nowhere to save a dying world, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe. The message was simple, the message was powerful, the message was spreading. Humanity is watching. Humanity is listening. And if you call out into the dark, humanity will answer, because that is who humans are, and that is what they will always be.